Today, Robinhood just announced that they're doing a checkings and savings account program, and they'll also be giving you a debit card to use to go along with that. And why I think this is kind of important and some decent news for Robinhood app users is, one, because this checkings and savings account actually gives you 3% interest, which is extremely higher than most savings and definitely checkings accounts, at least in the US. And there's a lot of other things that they'll actually be giving you along with this I'll talk about later in the video. But anyway, so like I just said, they're giving out sort of like almost turning Robinhood into a bank, but not actually a bank. So they're offering a checkings and savings account, and I actually signed up for it already. And if you want to sign up for it, definitely click my link in the description. And for some reason, I'm like super low on the sign up list, even though I've had like an enormous amount of referrals, because they say like the more referrals you have, the higher you are, and the quicker you will get the card actually if you want to. But anyways, a couple things to note about this. It is totally free to use. Like, there's no fees for anything like that, and there's no, like, you don't have to pay anything to sign up. There's no minimum deposit either, so you could literally put like $5 in it if you wanted. And I think one of the biggest things that it has is the 3% yield. So with that 3% interest rate, that is definitely significantly higher than the average in the US, which is around like 0.1% or something like that. And that's like almost 30 times bigger than the average. So that in itself, I think, is like probably a reason that some people might want to switch over, because it's very likely if you have your money in any bank in the US, whether it's a checkings account or a savings account, you're probably not getting even 1% interest rate per year. And Robinhood adding this 3% rate is like really, really huge in my opinion. I personally invest most of my money anyways. Like, I don't have a lot of money sitting in a savings or checkings account, simply because it makes more sense to have your money in a portfolio that it's at least getting you some sort of yield. But I definitely will consider bringing some of my savings and checkings over to Robinhood once it actually comes out, if not all of it. But anyways, like I just said, that yield is definitely a big deal. Some other things that's a big deal, I think, for some people might be the no fees. My personal bank that I use, which is just KeyBank, they actually don't have very many fees, and I have like very basic checkings and savings account. So luckily, I don't get charged very many fees. The only fees I could get charged is an overdraft fee, which they actually don't have, which is kind of nice to see. So it looked as if there was pretty much no fees at all associated with this. There's nothing like in between the lines. Some things I was expecting fees for was something like overdraft, which they said they won't be charging a fee for that, which I feel like most banks do. But it looked like as if there wasn't anything hidden, there wasn't anything they were trying to hide. The only possible fee you could incur with this is if you were using like a third-party ATM. So if you went to like I don't know, like Bank of America and use their ATM, they definitely could charge you a fee for that, but that's just normal with every single bank for the most part. I know my bank checkings account, I can actually use any ATM I want and I won't get charged a fee, but that's not very common. So that is one thing that might turn you off from it, but I think with the 3% yield, that's enough to turn me on to it. Another thing you might be wondering is about ATMs. So how does that work? Because I'm sure you've never seen a Robinhood ATM around. I definitely haven't. And apparently there's going to be over 75,000 ATMs in the US, and they're also going to have some international ones, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure where those are going to be placed. They didn't really say much on that, but 75,000 ATMs in the US. I think they said that it was bigger than the 5 largest banks combined. Like, they have more ATMs than the 5 largest banks combined. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that they're simply like using other ATMs for Robinhood. They're not actually putting like their own Robinhood ATMs around the country. They might do it in some spots, but I have never seen one and never heard of one before. So of course they they announced this today, so maybe they'll be potentially putting some out in the next couple of weeks or so. But I'm going to have to guess that they're just going to use basic ATMs in places like just convenience stores, Walmarts, whatever, and just simply like slap their logo on there and probably pay them a fee to use the ATM. But that is kind of nice to know that there's going to be a lot of ATMs, because I know they are relying more on mobile than cash-based, but I think it is still a good thing to be able to have one in the area. And they did say that they're going to be at big convenience stores, places like 7-Eleven, Walmart, Costco, Target. Those were just a couple of random places that they named. Anyways, another actual thing that you actually get is a debit card, and they had 4 styles of it. They had like I think it was a white one, black one, a green one to like match their logo, and then a one with a USA flag on it. I will definitely be getting the green one because I thought that was the coolest looking one. And they also said it is like a normal bank account where you get an account number, routing number, checks, I guess. I don't really know how they're going to work with that, but because they don't have actual like banks for you to go to. I don't know if they'll like mail them to you or something like that. Mobile check deposits, which is nice, and then checking cash deposits in ATMs. And you can also use pretty much all of the mobile pays like Apple Pay, Samsung, Google Pay with your Robinhood checkings or savings account, whatever you're using. And the last thing that I think people might be most worried about potentially is security, like whether or not the accounts are actually secure or not. So they kind of made it pretty clear with that. They said if you lose your card or if you like misplace it, something like that, or it gets stolen, you can lock it immediately from the Robinhood app. So that's pretty interesting as well, I think, and something that's probably pretty important to a lot of people. And then besides that, the only other thing they commented on security or privacy was basically said all your privacy is going to be locked and secured. None of your information is going to get out. Then they also said that it is not actually FDIC insured, so it is SIPC insured, and the main reason for that is because it's not an actual bank. So at any normal bank you go to, you probably see the little logo all over the place that says FDIC. It's just pretty much saying that they're insured up like, I think it's like $500,000 to like $1 million or something like that. And then SIPC, it is, I believe, a little bit less than that actually, but either way, it's still like good enough insurance and good enough secured for me. I'm not really too worried about anything in terms of that category, but you might want to look more into it if you are worried about that, or maybe if you're planning on like moving over a pretty sizable amount into a Robinhood checkings or savings account. So overall, I think this is definitely a good thing for Robinhood and also a good thing for just normal consumers, because it is pretty hard to find a savings and definitely a checkings account that's getting you a guaranteed 3% interest return every single year. And they also said that this wasn't just like a short-term type thing. Like it wasn't just going to be like they're just going to go get like 1 million people to sign up for this for a year, then chop that rate down to like 0.1%. They did say that this was going to be something that was going to be permanent and that they would hopefully be raising it, or in the future, which I can't actually see them raising it very much, but I could see them possibly stabilizing this 3%. And I think I'm kind of guessing here, but they either got a ridiculous amount of funding to be able to do this, which I do know they have some pretty big investors that are investing in them because they are a private company, or they might have just simply be like just cutting down costs a ridiculous amount, because obviously they don't have branches or anything like that. They don't have actual banks you could go to, and it probably looks like they're not even creating their own ATM, so they really have no physical costs at all. They're really making everything electronic, mobile, online, and that is probably cutting down costs an enormous amount. And they probably just have one team working on this, so they're not actually like employing like hundreds of branches around the country or anything like that. And another thing to note about security is they said they're going to have 24/7 customer support. So in the past, Robinhood, just the Robinhood app, has had a lot of critiques and complaints about their customer support, basically saying that it's not very good. And probably one of the reasons for that is because, well, one, they don't really have a phone number for you to call. It's all online. And two, like they seem to be very slow in replying, and they just don't seem to have that great of customer support. In my personal experience, I have had pretty good support, but I have heard a pretty significant amount of people on my channel complain about it. So it will be interesting to see if this support is actually better than the Robinhood app support, and I really hope it is, because I'm sure most of you would want a 24/7 support line, because any bank that you probably have has this, unless it's like a really local bank. But if you look at a lot of the bigger banks out there like Bank of America, KeyBank, just some of the big names, they definitely have good customer support. And one thing that I am not necessarily worried about, but every so often with my bank, I have had some random problems with like money not being deposited right, or like, my money getting jammed in an ATM or something like that. And I would definitely want really good customer support. So that is the only one thing that's sort of delaying me from signing up with them. I just want to like definitely make sure that they actually have good customer support before I, potentially deposit, hundreds and thousands of dollars into my accounts with them. But that 3% yield is definitely very enticing, considering I have some money in my checking and savings now that's virtually getting no money. And lastly, I think one thing that's kind of big about this is that they're actually doing this when the market's been doing very poorly over the past year or so. So it's kind of easy for a company like Robinhood to do well during a bull market, which, we've been going on for, at least from like 2018 to, 2008, 2009 range. But considering they're doing this when the market's been going down a lot over the past year and definitely the past few months or so is kind of interesting and probably a good thing to see, because it probably shows that they're still making money and still doing pretty well. But other than that, guys, that's really it for this video. Like I said before, if you want to sign up for Robinhood, use my link in the description. You actually get free stock when you sign up. But unfortunately, I'm maxed out of my referral, so I don't get a free stock. But other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, definitely let me know below what you think about this. Will you be signing up for it or not? Because I already did sign up for it. And I'm not actually 100% sure how much money I'm going to move over just yet. But other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed.